हेलो एवरीवन, वेलकम बैक टू अ यूट्यूब चैनल। और आज का जो हम टॉपिक डिस्कस करेंगे, हम अंबेडकर के बारे में बात करेंगे कि उनका क्या कंट्रीब्यूशन रहा है और वो कैसे उनने गांधी को क्रिटिसाइज करा है वेरियस ग्राउंड्स में, और उनका जो कंट्रीब्यूशन है वो इंडियन नेशनल मूवमेंट वो कितना ज़्यादा सिग्निफिकेंट रहा है। Before that, we have UPSC CSE Subscription price hike reminder, and the price hike date has extended due to multiple requests made by many people. So you can get your subscription for the 10% discount, and you can simply use this code. And the duration for month is from 8,000 to 9,000, from 20,000 to 22,500, and these prices will increase after 24th October, from 36,000 to 40,500, from 44,000 to 49,500, and from 64,000 to 72,000. So if you want your discount and subscription, then do apply for this code. Then the Unacademy Aspire is providing you with the All India free mock test for the civil servant aspirant under UPSC CSE Prelims of 2021 Paper 1 JS, and it will be conducted on every 10th and 25th of every month, and you will also get exciting prizes and scholarship for top 50 rank holders, and it will be conducted on 25th October at 10 a.m. sharp. So you can enroll now for this. So Unacademy full-length mains mock paper has been set up for ethics and for UPSC CSE, and we have free live plus special classes, and it will be conducted on 25th October at 9 p.m. sharp, and you can enroll for this class. Then we have special batches for UPSC CSE mains 2020, and we have the advanced batch course for UPSC CSE mains 2020 bilingual that starts from 19 October. That has started from 19 October. We have advanced batch course for UPSC CSE main 2020 in Hindi that started from 14th October. And we have advanced batch course also for UPSC CSE mains 2020 in English that also started from 14th October. So you can enroll now for this. Then UPSC CSE complete batch preparation courses has already started from 19 and 26 October. And we have 4 batch courses. The first one is a bilingual, in which the medium of instruction would be in Hindi, English both. The second one is in Hindi completely. The third one is in English, and the fourth one is a Mission 2022 2-year batch course for UPSC CSE. So this one subscription has unlimited benefits, like you can learn from your home, you have unlimited access to all courses, top educators of India on one platform, full syllabus coverage, double doubt clearing session, live test series, study material will be provided to you in the form of PDF format. We have answer writing sessions, and it will be done under a mentor and guidance. This is also one-stop solution for your complete UPSC CSE preparation, because you have structured batches with top educators, batches like in Hindi, English, bilingual, late night as well as 2-year batches, 100% syllabus coverage, vast range of optionals, prelims test series with evaluation, main test series with evaluation. We have dedicated a doubt clearing classes also, and we have daily current affair practice, essay and answer writing practice, performance analysis, and along with that we'll prepare you for the interview also. So if you subscribe now, then you will get 10% off. You simply need to apply this code and get 10% off. And T20 daily current affair test series completely free under this, and it will be given to you at the daily 7:30 p.m. We have 20 questions for 20 minutes, and it will be for 40 marks the whole paper. And along with that, we'll also give you a test analysis also. So you can click to join on YouTube, Telegram, and Facebook if you really like our channel. So let's start with this topic. As we know that Dr. Bhimrao Ramaji Ambedkar basically stands on the pedestal due to quite different from many others for a variety of reasons. That first, he was a very profoundly, and his personality exemplifies his unique saga of the untouchable, being to fight able to the massive social disabilities by the sheer of formidable courage and never to die say attitude to live. He became a very eminent constitutionalist and distinguished parliamentarian, scholar, and jurist. So the leader of the depressed classes at that period of time, as we know, was living in a very ordinary, respectful life. For an untouchable appeared extremely difficult, so if not impossible, given to the hostile and degrading attitude of the upper classes of the society towards such people. So he reinvented the entire notion of anti-untouchability, the social reform movement, not only in Maharashtra but probably in the urban India, by evolving a very flexible, well-reasoned, and multi-pronged strategy to argue with and fight against all the matter, but resisted that the struggle for untouchables is to secure a dignified, respectful place in our Indian society. So a life for a cause of untouchable. So the life of Ambedkar we have seen is to be very life of perpetual struggle in the antidote between the certain constructive interventions such as his writings, the books, monographs, or being the instrumental in drafting the constitution for free India. So the curse that it is of the derogatory and the untouchability was right from his childhood. So this is not to argue that no other person before Ambedkar felt the pain and aspired the freedom from such inhumane things. So before born in an untouchable Mahar family in 14 April 19 in 1891 near Indore, Ambedkar also seemed to be like destined to face the indignities, discrimination in this life right to from his childhood due to the constant exposure to the public places like school. So as a pampered child of his family, he seemed to be remained to immune from these social disabilities from some time as his parents sent him to the local Marathi school where the caste discrimination don't appear to be very pronounced. So the caste and untouchables in society. So a social thought of Ambedkar was basically like revolves around the idea of understanding the dynamics of caste system in India and wagging a very tireless crusade against the curse of untouchability. So it was drawn from his own experiences that in being subjected to a numerous kinds of social indignities, discrimination at the various stages and the different walks of life. So he was convinced for the purpose of life that which was also he remains steadfastly committed. So however we can see that the social thought of Ambedkar seemed to have very graduated from one level of assumptions to the another owing to the reception of his previous assumption at the hands of the social institutions and that was dominated by the high caste Hindus. So Ambedkar began his painstaking effort to analyze the dynamics of caste system in India. So the first essay he wrote on the subject was the caste in India, their mechanism, genesis, and the development in 1917. So he noted the outset of the Hindu society composed of the classes from the earliest time that existed in the forms of Brahmin, the priestly class, the Kshatriyas, the warrior, the Vaishyas, the trading, and the Shudras, the artisan class. So the fundamental characteristic of a system was basically the scope of graduation of individual from one particular class to another, provide that he learned the essential qualities of that class. So such class subdivision in society like appeared very natural to him, given to the diversity of the innate responsibilities to be shouldered by the different set of people. So gradually we can see however his subdivision actually started losing their open door character of the class system and it became very self-closed units that was also known as caste. So the beginning in this regard, it seemed to have made like efforts by the priestly class at some point of time in history by detaching itself from the rest of body of the people through a very closed door policy by became a caste itself. So the endogamy emerged to be a mainstay in the caste system, which was nothing but an incarnation of the closed caste. So Ambedkar, like precisely, he analyzed the Rig Veda and found a typical explanation for the origin of caste system in the Purush Sukta. So this actually text explains that the origin of caste system from the sacrificial dismemberment of divine man, the Virat Purush whose limbs belong to give birth to the various castes in the following order, that his mouths become Brahmin, the warriors are Kshatriya were the product of arms, his thighs were artisan and the feet were servant, that means the Shudras. So Ambedkar like denounced such an overt justification of the graded inequalities by the Purusha Sukta on the plea that no society has officially made a gradation that was laid, fixed and permanent by ascending to the scale of reverence and then descending a scale of the contempt. Now let's talk about the annihilation of caste. So as we know, annihilation of caste was one of the foremost monographs published by Ambedkar. So he aimed by explaining to the exploitative nature of our caste system and by calling the annihilation in order to basically like secure the social order based on a equal status and dignity for all. So he explained the earlier the brilliant piece, a thought provoking the write up that was penned as a lecture as delivered with the presidential speech at the annual conference at Jatpat Todak Mandal of Lahore in 1936 by Ambedkar. So this was like a early printing in the speech that went to be as uh, unsympathetic eyes of the organizer, who couldn't simply even understand the scathing attack on the speech was made on the caste system that was leading to the cancellation of the program, and the speech remained undelivered. So subsequently it was published in form of book in the year to become undoubtedly the best known books and monograph book that was authored by Ambedkar. So the caste system is basically a debilitating institution in Indian society, which led to doing of good that it wrought the inseparable loss of the untouchables, and therefore it needs to be eradicated without any repentance. So he begins by exposing the inherent nature of the caste system, which is found out to be grounded on the false notion of division of labor in conjunction with the gradation of the labors as well. So it was like indispensable on the basis of overtly ridiculous notion of the biological purity. The caste remains very irrelevant factor insofar the economic efficiency is also concerned. So rather he imbued the inherent anti-social spirit. This caste system is a caste has not just only gone to exclude the aboriginal tribe from within its fold, but also it created like wedges among the various sub-caste system as well. So like taking into his argument that the very poor, that the root cause of this problem, that Ambedkar tried to unmask the hidden motivation were behind the idea of Chaturvarnya, that is the foundation of caste system. He argued that this formation of a social organization appears to be very impractical, harmful, has turned out to be miserable failure. Even though the practical point of view, the Varnya seems to be surrounded by a number of difficulties like explaining, establishing the differences between the caste, the principle underlying the Varna, ignoring the uniqueness of every individual, straitjacketing all the individual into just the four classes would be like killing its ingenuity of the each individual. So he negated the idea of the penal system that actually deals with all the people equally. So finally, he was ignoring the position of all the women in such a system. So Ambedkar, therefore, like he asserts that even the Chaturvarnya is also like becomes very practical system, and it is bound to be the most vicious one. Now let's talk about the social reform. As we know, like being realistic to the core, Ambedkar he tries to raise question on the chances of success of social reform that is aimed by annihilating the caste. So he was like very perceptible discerns of the various methods of bringing out a social reform in a society. The one must also suit to the purpose by abolishing the caste system that would need to be rooted through the denouncement of fundamental religious notion. So he argues that the caste has a divine basis and you must therefore destroy the sacredness and the divinity of which the caste has become invested. So in the last analysis you can see this means that you must destroy the authorities of the Shastras and the Ved. So however we can also see that this idea turned out to be the pious wishes of Ambedkar, as he was quick enough to point out such a task might be a well nigh possible for the certain obvious reason. So, for instance, while the Brahmins would be the most formidable stumbling block in the context due to the vested interest that was existing in the social order. So, other castes might also not go for it by keeping in mind the two unique aspects of the caste system. Now, let's talk about the Gandhi Ambedkar debate. As we all know, the basic issue that was the core of the Gandhi Ambedkar intellectual acrimony. It appears that it was very fundamental differences between the two perspective leaders of the two leaders. So we can see there was a situation or solution of the problem of untouchability under the views of caste system. And at the onset of the most people, including Gandhi, Ambedkar, were basically understood the problem of untouchability was lying in the domain of the social reform for sustainable effort that needed to be made by them. So we can see, however, Gandhi like continued to view the problem of untouchability as a social issue, and Ambedkar gradually got convinced by the veracity of the multi-pronged strategy for emancipation of the depressed classes that was like winning the political rights turned out to be the main objective. So moreover, we can see that there was a growing tendency on the part of Ambedkar to relate the idea of untouchability to the whole system of what they may also call as the Hindu view of life, and this will appear to be the very close heart to the Mahatma Gandhi also because it apparently brought him the direct clash with the later flashpoint to which that became in the form of the Pune Pact. So Ambedkar quest for a political rights were basically depressed the classes that made traced in the consultation by the committee in 1999, and was set up to reformulate the electoral franchise under the proposed constitutional reform. So this inability was the zero, that was a specific formula did not allow him to ask for a particular solution, and considered a number of options that was like the reserved seat, separate electorate, and equally viable. So however, by the time of Simon Commission in 1928, he appeared very inclined to the possibility the reserve seat in comparison to a separate electorate. So we can see during the various like roundtable conferences, the proceedings of minority committees, the Ambedkar was apparently were away from the by the supporters of the separate electorate. Formula and the name were getting more protection for the untouchables. So he was like Gandhi's opposition to this scheme was the tooth and the nail. So significantly during the 1920s and the early 1930s, when the problem of untouchability was sought to be resolved, so the political empowerment of untouchables, the Gandhi evolved and persisted with the socio-humanist approach to this problem. So through his writing in Young India, he like forcibly he was opposing the practice of untouchability and asserted that the occupation attributes a social status to the people. So uniqueness of Gandhian approach on this issue basically lied by toiling the abolition of untouchability without compromising the basic tenets of the Hindu religion and the flawless theoretical construct of the caste system by praising it for saving Hinduism from the disintegration. So we can see very clearly that the approach of the problem of untouchability rested on eradication through self-enlightenment of people, which was a sharp contrast for Ambedkar approach in the waging struggles for the same. So we can also see that even in 90s 40s, when Gandhi seemed to be willingly like accept the intermarriage as a means for eradicating the vice the caste system, he still did not support the eradication of caste as a social unit, but which brought to him were the conflict with Ambedkar, whose historical call for the annihilation of caste had become like one of the cherished goals of his life. So the growing intervention of Gandhi in the activities for emancipation of the untouchables apparently led to the weakening of the position of the Ambedkar in bringing out a very comprehensive politicization of the untouchables. So surprisingly, we can also see like despite like he was disagreeing with the Gandhian perspective, the cause of emancipation or of the untouchables and the vigor of Gandhi's untouchability was a campaign for his consequent protest and the opposition for the orthodox upper caste Hindus to it convince the Ambedkar at least the temporary of the honesty of such programs. So we can see, however, that all these activities were cumulatively work to frustrate the long-term aim for Ambedkar to politicize the untouchables and evolve them into a formidable force for the political landscape of the country. Now, what are the political thoughts of Ambedkar? So, like being a scholar activist, he was keeping a vigilant eye on the happening of times, responding them to the both theoretical as well as practical planes. It was obvious that Ambedkar had to commented on the wide range of issues that was pertaining to our political scenario of a country, the political thought of Ambedkar. Therefore, it does not come as a body of organized and systematic theorization. So, on the contrary, we can see the political thought of Ambedkar consists of views that was expressed to him in the form of numerous statements, speech, books, monographs that was coming in the wake of particular issue being raised on a specific point of time. So we can see, for instance, during the 90s, 50s, the problem when linguistic reorganization of states became a burning point in our country in the wake of agitation past was in the southern part of country. So he prompted basically to pen down the book on the thoughts of linguistic state to articulate his intellectual understanding of the problem and gave a very fine solution to it. So we can see that Ambedkar as a political thinker appears liberal and not a dogmatic one to the core, to the context that was driven critically beliefs of the liberal values that was underpinned amongst the entire body and the political thought that is reflected in the main strand of political thinking. Ambedkar also articulated these various contexts and from some time to time. Now let's talk about the rights of people. So while he was giving his own views on the annihilation of caste, Ambedkar also like very he also like expressed himself in the favor of the social order that was based on the ideals of liberty, equality, fraternity, and it wanted to highlight the absence of and the need for the Indian society, especially in the case of untouchables. So the basically it was rooted in the contextual framework. He went on to explain the imperative nature, the limits of the rights, and the imperative of individual rights. So for Ambedkar, it appears that to become very evident due to democratization and the impact on society. So as a firm believer in the egalitarian and the democratic socio-political system, Ambedkar was convinced that there was like an order that was ordained and only of having the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity were basically ingrained in the law of the land of the country. So for to him, basically the individual appears to be basically an agent that was a setup to bring about some fundamental changes on political, social standing of the person in our society. So basically, in order to like emphasize the indissolubility of the rights, Ambedkar actually stood up for the natural theory of right instead of the legal theory of rights, which sought to have become the case of the comprehensive training in the legal profession. We can see that taking the rights of the natural and inherent of the human personality, he basically stressed upon the social sanction instead the legal support that was a true perspective for securing the rights of people. So we can see over here clearly that his starkness and rigidity of the prevailing social inequalities and the indignities and discriminations against untouchables seem to have a weighed heavily on the minds of Ambedkar, and as he was like vehemently argued that the constitutional protection of fundamental rights of people. Thus, we can see that theoretical understanding of the nature and the practical manifestation of the concept of right. It seemed to be basically deferred Ambedkar in a view of contextual imperatives of the different times. Now, let's talk about the constitutional democracy. So, as a liberal thinker, Ambedkar had a very hardcore believer in the values of constitutional democracy, and he was having very irrevocable elements of social and economic democracy in addition to the political democracy. So, indeed, the notion of the social democracy was situated in the framework of constitutional democracy, and it appeared very dearer to him and the political democracy because it was based on the fact that it was a thing that he sought to, that was fought for, that he fought for throughout his life. So the complex web of democracy in the Ambedkar was expected to consist of not only just the sterile inputs on the political in nature, but also the dynamic elements of social economic democracy in which we will find the balance having weighing on the favor of social democracy. So we can see that his framework of life and Ambedkar like emphasized the social component of democracy, a system of government. He explicitly expressed himself in favor of British Parliament model of democracy. And by taking this system, he was like providing a very ample scope for reconciliation of individuals, good, the social good, and he was keen by imbibing the basic liberal values, and he was underpinned the function of parliamentary democracy. So, in for instance, we can see that he seemed to be very overwhelmed with the virtue of rule of law, the foundational characteristic of the democracy, as this lays down on the basic functional domain of the various actors in polity. So, basically, he was showing the wisdom of the realistic thinker. Ambedkar was a quick; he was want to conceptualize the notion of democracy, and he would give very peculiar conceptual framework that was evident in our country. So we can say, for instance, he has no case that was ready to afford the rule of majoritism because he was in this case of classical notion of parliamentary democracy for the sake of stability, good governance, efficiency of the government, as he was convinced that efficiency combined with the selfish class interest instead of producing the good government was far likely to be the mere engine of the suppression of the servile classes also. So now let's talk about the social justice. So Ambedkar was the protagonist. Idea of social justice was inalienable part of our constitutional democratic system, because the social justice basically means that it's a very distinct aspect of socio-economic and the political system of a country through which we are coordinated the measures that were initiated, and it aims towards a disadvantaged position to be of the depressed class in the society. So Ambedkar made a very firm opinion that the provisions for securing not only political justice that was suffixed to bring about the desired level of social upliftment, but the untouchables will also enable them to enjoy a good social equality in their life. So he also vehemently argued that the idea of social justice is complex and comprehensible. So the socio-economic and the political was preferential and supportive in the policy that measures towards the upliftment status of depressed classes in society. A unique point of notion of social justice was propagated by Ambedkar for insisting on the statutory basis to the measures that needs to be taken in the policy compulsion. Government do not just remain mm, in the nature of altruistic favors that was being extended to the depressed classes. So Ambedkar basic concern was arguing on the notion of social justice seemed to be perceptible, understanding the nature of the social inequalities in India, under which the dominant social relations need to try to perpetuate in some sort of natural and logical inequality, requiring no corrective measures on the part of the larger society for its eradication. So let's conclude this presentation that a survey on the thought of actions of Ambedkar basically reflects on the solitary purpose of life and the emancipation of the untouchables in a Indian society. So by taking such inspiration and the lessons from his own life, Ambedkar remained very untiring crusader for the cause of untouchables during the life spanning over the 6 decades. So a potential problem was playing way into such multiple roles that seems to be maintaining a fair degree of clarity, consistency, special successful exposition of various ideas and performance of diverse roles in which the Ambedkar could not escape. So we can see there was an expert on Ambedkar that points out that he was like quite often found the flattering on various virtue of great theoretician practitioner, and the obvious there was results for which that was political economic thought, and his politics was very contradictory and there was lacking in proper clarity and precision also.